Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Brock Beard from LastCar.info, and I am coming at you at the conclusion of the Coca-Cola 600 with Kyle Larson, unofficially your winner in utterly dominating fashion, becoming increasingly common that drivers are utterly crushing the field with 300 plus lap lead margins here. But this is very much the story earlier today with the number 5 car returning to victory lane unofficially as we wait for post-race results from technical inspection, which will be certainly something that everybody's going to be looking at, given the fact that Hendrick very nearly had yet another top 4 sweep of the field there. Kyle Busch, the one spoiler in between there. Going to be interesting to see what happens with technical inspection with that team as well, I think, with if you believe in numerology and everything on that. Yeah, really, tremendous amount. Packed show tonight. I got a lot to show you guys tonight. Got something very special for our show and tell segment. And also, of course, next week coming up to Sears Point, the return our trackside coverage for 2021. All of this we'll be talking about tonight, along with the trivia segment. So first of all, again, a happy Memorial Day weekend to you out there. I know it's a later show here for you tonight, but hopefully most of you have tomorrow off there, so it's not something that's too late for you guys here, but I appreciate for you all popping in. So we'll definitely talk racing tonight, and a lot to cover on that aspect there too. Thank you, iRacer CB there. I know I'm early, Brock, but I have to ask, what are your thoughts on Clint Boyer and Jeff Gordon trash talking the field fillers? We'll certainly talk more about that along the way, but I guess I can lead that off, head on. In our last place battle tonight, we had a situation with, it seemed like in particular, David Starr in the number 66 for Motorsports Business Management returning to the circuit for the first time since Talladega. Starr for him, first time he's run a cup race since Martinsville last year. And also the 52 of Josh Bilicki in particular from the Rick Ware quartet seemed like they were particularly having trouble keeping up to speed. It's interesting to see with Gordon and Clint Boyer. I think for those of you who've seen the rise of the field fillers thing, I'm less surprised by Gordon criticizing him, given the situation with Andy Hillenberg he had back then with the Hoover Motorsports injury. Certainly, I'm sure when you see some of these close calls there in traffic, that he's thinking back to that as well. But I still think it's one aspect that just makes the race, that much more challenging out there. And in a race like this, where you have a team that's that dominant, there were cases where it actually kind of helped tighten up the competition there. And I think that's something that maybe, both he and Clint were kind of not really as aware of there. But again, there's always been that kind of a separation between the big teams and the small teams there. This isn't the first time we've seen it. Certainly not going to be the last from one time to the next. So a lot to kind of look at there. But, it's unfortunate. I mean, I think that a lot of these competitors that have run for larger, more well-heeled teams, they kind of forget how difficult it is for competitors out there. I think even Gordon, when he had the Hillenberg wreck in 04, he seemed to be more even-handed about Hillenberg himself. But obviously with the back injuries that later seemed to really plague Gordon's career later on, I think maybe in hindsight, he looks at it a little more differently. It'd be interesting to talk to him about the subject, given the nature of it there. And it still remains a hot button issue. But as long as it's being talked about, again, kudos to Wookie Atomo on Twitter, working with Carl Long's team. He's providing some interesting context there about the challenges that these small teams face in the 550 horsepower package. And of course, this race is another perfect example of the frustrations that a lot of these teams feel if everybody's able to mat it out there. And the big teams are able to keep it flat to the floor. A lot of the small teams, if they're having any kind of a problem, and David Starr in particular, through a lot of this race, was just constantly talking about how tight that car was, in spite of the fact that we've had practice and qualifying, just not being able to get the adjustments quite right. It's enough to just make you just completely in the way. And I don't know what the minimum speed was or how it was being enforced by NASCAR. I didn't hear any traffic on Starr's car until I think almost halfway through the race, around the time Kurt Busch ultimately fell out. But it's an unfortunate situation. I think there's a lot of intricacies to it. Hopefully it gets more attention so that it gets talked about a lot more. But whether it's disappointing or frustrating, it's not really surprising, from the broadcast group there. But it is what it is, and it's something that hopefully gets looked at a little further down the line. Let me see here. Where was it? I had on here. Did I retweet it? I think I retweeted on this. Let me make sure I get Wookie's quote here. Again, for those of you unfamiliar, he's one of the was the crew chief for Timmy Hill's Xfinity Series team as well. Wookie Atomo TV on Twitter. Definitely recommend following him there for more insight on the smaller teams there, especially now with the Carl Long episode coming up. He's already still working with Carl. The one he tweeted 45 minutes ago. Here's the thing with the slower cars. It wasn't this bad a couple years back. However, with the 550 package, it exemplifies the bad equipment. Any off-throttle time, you're struggling to maintain minimum speed. I believe he goes on here in this one as well. Yes, the field technically has gotten weaker in recent years, but the 66 went from hovering around 30th with 2013 MWR cars to struggling to maintain minimum speed at intermediates. It's obviously not there right now. I don't know the exact issue tonight, but now these cars react to every little change or lack of aero trick a small team may not have knowledge to stay on top of. So when a small team misses the mark like the 66 or 52 and has to lift, it's embarrassing. And he goes on even more from there. But this, I think that really kind of hits on the head there about, the issue with having a package where everybody just has to keep matting it to the floor. And, you have a situation where, again, a driver like Kyle Larson, once you get out and get some decent track position and you get very few restarts to try to catch him, there's very little you can do. And then you just get large margins of victory, and that being the situation. Imagine having a car that's not even able to do that. And then you get the situation much like Wookie brought up here. So kudos to him. He's always provided great insight there, and I definitely recommend the follow if you haven't checked out that as well. Confirmation 07, thank you for the super chat as well. Am I going to Sonoma this year? Absolutely. I am going to be at the track. I haven't heard the final word on the credentials yet, but it sounds like that last I talked, it sounds like we're probably going to be set there. I have a fallback plan if anything else falls back on that. But yes, I will be at the next two races, and I'll have some more information on that coming up here as part of our show and tell segment, of course. So we'll get into that as well. I want to kind of finish talking about the other races here from this weekend. We'll talk about Indy as well, because a fantastic race that we saw from there. Your last place finisher unofficially in this one was Kurt Busch. Bizarre situation with the Chip Ganassi Racing Team cars with the oil pump belt breaking on both cars. I don't know if it was actually confirmed for Kurt's, but the reports over the radio seem to indicate the same situation with the power steering suddenly going out and the loss of oil pressure. If you don't have anything spinning off that belt there, everything just shuts down pretty quick. Sterling Marlin had that issue at Sears Point quite a few years ago, back in 2002. Get some gravel in there, and it slips the belt right off of it, and that ended his day pretty quick. In the situation with Ross Chastain, they were able to catch it quick enough because apparently it happened on pit road or very close to it, and he was able to get back out there and finish several laps down in the finish here, still showing him 41 laps down at the finish. But Kurt Busch's engine was terminally damaged. He came back out there, and as you saw on the Twitter feed, no sooner did I use my traditional "it's alive" when the car gets back out there, the engine blew immediately in the first corner and dropped him out of the race. And, of course, that unofficially will be your feature for tonight's Last Car article for the Cup Series, as Kurt Busch now gets his second last place finish and his first since Atlanta. Looking at his stats, he's really had a really difficult stretch here. That fire he had at Darlington, I think he had a wreck at Talladega as well. Just really struggling during this stretch here, being down in points. And now I guess we're even like a parody site made it sound like he was going to be retiring. And now I guess we got rumors about where he may or may not be heading next year. A lot of things up in the air, as they tend to be midway through the season. But we'll see where all that shakes out going forward on that. But an unfortunate turn of events for Kurt Busch. And really with the results here, having practice and qualifying and then a return to metric qualifying this next week for the 2-day event at Sears Point, we're going to have the results of tonight's race are going to be critical for the actual lineup. It's going to be, it's whatever the metric is, the exact parameters of it. But the finishing results from each race seem to be weighted pretty heavily. And it's very possible, although not guaranteed, that Kyle Larson will end up with his fourth straight pole at Sears Point. The previous three with group qualifying, and now this time under this metric here, which is pretty amazing. So we'll see what happens there. And then Truex, given the struggles that he had during this race, very uncharacteristic of him in the 600, may possibly end up having to start further back in the lineup. and he'll certainly be one to watch in next week's race as well. So already some very interesting storylines coming up there as well. So yeah, the back of the field there, we talked about Bilicki and Starr. They may have finished 18 and 31 laps down. Starr was black flagged his one time, came down pit road for repairs. I think it was about 130 laps in, around the exact same time that Kurt Busch blew up. Starr's repairs apparently were just good enough for him to get minimum speed because he finished the rest of the race under power. Kudos to him and the team there. I know I'm sure that was no fun, but great job by him being able to get back out there and finishing ahead of both Chip Ganassi cars on Memorial Day weekend. I don't think anybody had that predicted, so he had that situation. But mentioning Martin Truex Jr. finishing in 29th, one spot ahead of Cody Ware. Cody Ware getting a solid 30th place run in the 53 car. They did a bit of a car swap there. Good. Thank you to, I think it was Max Newworth in Twitter there mentioning that there was the car swap there. I need to really study my entry list storylines articles before each race because I'd forgotten that he swapped with Ware in the 51 car. But Ware getting in the 53 car this time, finishing 11 laps down, just behind Truex with 9 laps down there after the tire situation there and the damage that was suffered to him. Very uncharacteristic. Even before that, Truex didn't seem much of a factor in this race, and unfortunately was further back in the lineup there. But yes, unofficially, Kyle Larson, your winner, and not too many surprises through the lineup there. Although Daniel Suarez ended up the first car off the lead lap at the finish in 15th after some issues there early in the event. Finished one spot behind their rivals there at 2311 Racing with Bubba Wallace, the last car on the lead lap. Bubba looked like he was on his way to his first top 10 there in a while, getting a good run. I guess he had a top 10 at one other race recently. Wasn't it at Dover or last week at Coda? But I thought he had one. Well, no, not at Coda. He got in the wreck there. But, again, close to getting this decent run there. 14th's not bad. I mean, again, hopefully things turn around. I think it's still a toss-up as to which of these teams is going to outperform the other at Sears Point. And I'm also going to be interested in the third group of the triumvirate there with BJ McLeod's Live Fast team. If they're going to have BJ drive the car, if they're going to get another road course ringer like when they had Scott Heckert at the Daytona road course, or what was it, Kyle Tilley last week at Coda. That's going to be interesting. I have no leads on that. I'm almost thinking maybe we get a guy like Tommy Dreese back and maybe go back to promoting movies again on the cars now that movie theaters are starting to open up. I think that would be kind of an interesting crossover there, get another gentleman racer out there to compete out there. But that's, again, no, I don't have any inside information on that. Hopefully we'll find out when the entry list gets posted later this week. But yeah, very nearly another Hendrick sweep of the top 4. All kinds of stuff to talk about with that, but very, very interesting on that. Oh my goodness. I just peeked back in here. Thank you so much for the super chats in here, folks. I definitely, let me make sure I catch up on these. Michael Jensen, let me get yours here. I think the criticism of the 66 is warranted. They finished a replay of the 66 in the way, then back live. They are passing them again. He ended 30 laps down with no time behind the wall. That's true. And he wasn't behind the wall. You're very right about that. I would be interested in how NASCAR enforces the minimum speed, why they're not enforcing it that much, or why they're not publicizing it as much. I was very surprised that the 66 wasn't warned any earlier than he was. And I don't know if it's unclear if the repairs really did a lot there for the team there, given the fact that they finished so many laps down. It's unfortunate. It's a bad situation. You'd like them to run a lot better. I think it, again, is a consequence of the package. I think Wookie's quote there, I think is about as close as you can get to what it's like on these small teams and trying to get in there and trying to actually understand things a lot better. I think that's another thing to really look at. So, really, just an unfortunate situation. And I hate it for David Starr because he's a good guy and all that. And I know it's not a matter of character. It's really just more of what the team is capable of and if they're able to kind of stay competitive. Things need to be looked at for sure. And I'm glad they were able to finish under power. It's unfortunate they weren't able to outlast anybody else because everybody else wasn't having any mechanical issues. We very nearly, if Kurt Busch didn't drop out, we could have had things be a complete toss-up and maybe Ross Chastain end up with the last place finish instead, still finishing under power. Again, very low attrition there kind of factors into it. But ordinarily, you'd have a race where you'd have a couple wrecks and a guy would would climb further up there. I think it's why Cody Ware's run the 53 is actually kind of impressive. But again, this is the first time we've seen the 66 back since Talladega. Luckily, they had practice and qualifying. You would like to think that maybe they were able to work a lot of bugs out. I mean, if the car was struggling this much tonight, imagine how difficult it must have been when they unloaded for practice. So hopefully they made some progress there. I don't know if they're going to make the trip west here. That's not, I'm not sure if they have before. I'm trying to remember offhand. I think maybe they had, but I know they have for Fontana before because they did that when we last covered a race in person. But that'll be another thing to look at too. But we've had some short fields the last couple of years at Sears Point. So if something works out, it'd be good. But maybe the travel expenses are an issue on that end there. Billy88 Joe, thank you for your super chat as well. To honor Jerry Nadeau's contribution to 269. Yes, absolutely. Hendrick Motorsports breaking the tie with Petty Enterprises for the most overall wins by a team. Thank you so much there for the super chat there, and absolutely for the shout out to Jerry Nadeau. Of course, coming up to Sears Point, you can only think of all the moments that he had there between the 1998 off-road battle against Jeff Gordon into turn 1 and turn 2, and then the unfortunate rear end gear failure on the Petty Enterprises car on the number 44 there. Could have very easily switched that standing entirely and maybe pushed this battle a whole other week if Nadeau's car was able to hold together that day in 2002, but unfortunately that wasn't the situation there. Kudos to the Hendrick Motorsports team. We'll see how things go in post-race inspection. They cleared the inspection at Dover. Hopefully we're not going to see anything different here tonight. But again, that's going to be today's already been full of surprises already, and we'll certainly talk about that too. But that's another one to look at. But yeah, thank you so much for the super chat on that. Beast of Metal, thank you for your super chat too. I saw some discussion about how Charlotte's 16-year-old surface still seems to race like brand new asphalt, even with obvious tire wear, and how it was detrimental to the race. Wonder what's up there. Good. I hadn't really thought about how long it's been since Charlotte's been resurfaced. You don't really think about it as being all bumpy and covered in sealant like Atlanta is. And that one, we're just talking about 97 on that. I guess we're going further back. Those of you who've watched it even longer, about that same period of time, rather, you think about the Levigate controversy at Charlotte and the fact that you had all kinds of cautions and blown tires, and NASCAR Man did a really nice video actually of compiling all 22 of the cautions, setting the record from the 2005 Coca-Cola 600. Definitely recommend checking that out as well. But it's hard to say. That's the first time I've heard of it in terms of the wear on the surface. I'd be interested to kind of get more drivers' perspectives on that. But yeah, the one thing I did notice during the race, it seemed like pit road was really rough. I know when Suarez came down pit road, I don't know if it was just the car, but it seemed like he was running on really hard shocks because it was just kind of bumping him around a whole lot. I don't know if that was an indicator of the rest of the track. Everybody else seemed pretty smooth, and kind of like what you're mentioning there, Beast of Metal, not having a whole lot of issues with it, but still something else to look at there. Hang on, this one disappeared. Let me make sure I get this one too. Ryan Moore, thank you for your super chat as well. What, in your opinion, is the biggest Coke 600 heartbreak? Chase last year and Dale Jr. 2011 come to mind. You mentioned those two. I definitely have to agree with both of those. Dale Jr.'s thing was just crushing. There's that famous video with the hip thrust guy in it and the woman pointing at her screen. Believe me, with Kyle Larson was my fantasy pick, and my brother picked Kyle Busch for tonight. That was pretty much a good recreation of it, except for what happened off the final corner. But that's one thing aside there. But yeah, the 600, you could have a lot of situations where drivers just absolutely have terrible breaks there. I think Casey Kane had some times where he was very close to winning it before he finally did in the 9 car there and just falling out of contention. Another one I would nominate that doesn't get talked about, I was kind of thinking about it towards the closing stages, was in 2006. Scott Riggs was fantastic for Gillette Evernham Motorsports, had a paint scheme for what was then a brand new Pixar film. The first Cars film was promoted on his car. The number 10 Valvoline Dodge, he led a lot of that race. He had the first pit stall. I think he won the pole for both Charlotte races that year. He was up there, had a bad pit stop towards the end, dropped him out of contention, and he never came that close to a win again in his Cup career, unfortunately. That's one that's really, really big, I would say, in terms of 600s. Then, of course, Jerry Nadeau's blown engine in 2000, WFRNC2, I think. I'm sorry, his username is kind of a mouthful. But those of you on YouTube, well, you're on YouTube, of course. See his channel. He did the heartbreak moment there from Nadeau's 2600, where he dropped the engine after just absolutely flogging the heck out of that car in that race. That's a big one, too. That was one of the most exciting Nadeau runs I'd ever seen in his career. He was just on another planet in that, kind of like Kyle Larson tonight. I mean, I think that's what was reminding me of that one too. Seeing a Hendrick car do that well and just have the field just that covered in the race reminded me a lot of that. And even with cars that were much harder to handle and some more daring moves in that one there. But that was a sad one for sure. So yeah, Scott Riggs and Jerry Nadeau I would nominate in there too. But your choices are good too, for sure. I mean, yeah, Chase Elliott's last year. Keselowski was my pick last year for it, and Last Bro picked Chase Elliott, so we had a fun time with that one for sure. But that was another one to certainly keep in mind. My goodness, is it Goobs King? Goobs King, thank you so much for the super chat on that as well. Starting to see some similarities between Jerry Nadeau and Daniel Hemrick. His career just seems to be snake bitten. I wonder if he will ever win. Very good point. I mean, we'll talk about the Xfinity race here. Probably be a good transition as any to go ahead and jump into that. The All-Sco Uniforms 300, it seemed like, he won the first two stages, right? He was in the 18 car. Yeah, he was right up there. Looked like he was going to actually lock it up. I still put Ryan Sieg in the same category as a guy that just always seems to be up there and just has just something stupid happen for one reason or another and hasn't got in there. I remember, my brother and I, we had a challenge back in 2001 where we thought either Mike Skinner or Robert Presley was going to win a cup race first because both of them seemed to keep coming close, and ultimately neither of them ever did. I kind of get the same feeling from the Ryan Sieg and the Daniel Hemrick thing, even with Hemrick running far superior equipment and from one team to the next, if he's running Childress or JR or Joe Gibbs or whatever organizations he's been with, it's just unfortunate that things haven't shaken out for him there. But especially we're going to be covering Texas in a couple weeks here. Part of our trip after we do the Sears Point this next week, we're going to do Texas in person for the All-Star Weekend, which will include the next Truck and Xfinity Series races after this. And so maybe Hemrick's first win or maybe Ryan Sieg breaks through. That'll be one they'll be very interested to see if we're able to see that in person. So that'll be an exciting one to follow. But again, it makes it an interesting story. It's heartbreak there on that end. But very much excitement from other teams, though. Have to talk about Brandon Brown and that inspiring rally at the end. He had an extra set of tires at just the right time, charged through the field there, and finished in fourth place. That run he had on the apron, he was the only one that could hook the bottom there towards the end, and he was just passing these guys wholesale, high-powered organizations, and ultimately was trading the spot with Tyler Reddick there in the Jordan Anderson entry there towards the end. Great show that he put on there, and kudos to him. Ty Dillon, after all the stories of Ty, we've heard with Ty Dillon, how he's struggled with depression and really difficult time in his career. It was really great to see him get in that Hour Motorsports car, get a top 10 out of it, finishing in the 7th spot there. Great run for Ty. We'd seen some flashes of brilliance with him with Germain Racing before they shut down, getting some stage wins out there. Hopefully he gets his feet back under him. I think this also speaks to just that 23 car is just the fountain of youth. I think you could put anybody in there that maybe has struggled and just been on hard times or trying to get things going again. We saw J.J. Yaley do well in that car. We saw Tyler Reddick do well in that car, of course, before he had the disqualification over at Homestead. It's a team that I think is going to be very interesting going forward. I don't know who's going to run the 23 at Texas, but I imagine they're going to be ones to watch as well. Jeremy Clements, I almost overlook him at this point. I kind of expect him to be in the top 10 from one week to the next. And there he is in the 10th spot again. Landon Castle getting a 13th place run. Alex LeBay, Chad Fincham, the 15th spot. I thought he was going to maybe get a top 10 there and help that 13 car get another foothold in points after the frustrations they had at COTA with Boris Said. Hopefully things look better for them. The other end of the field, Grant Enfinger, an unfortunate deal on all fronts. I think, and Brad Perez posted this about Brandon Godovic, Brandon was really not sure of his ability to run well in the 1.5 mile tracks, handed the wheel to Enfinger. I think it's, again, he hasn't run a 1.5 mile, apparently, like 5 or 6 years, according to the tweet that was posted by the team. Again, it's an organization. They try to get the very best runs they can. Charlotte in particular, where you have teams that are, failing to qualify or, having difficulties there. They want to get the best run they could. I think, it's not the easiest thing, I would imagine, for a driver to give up their seat voluntarily. But putting Grant Enfinger in there, especially after Enfinger's great run, even with Cody Rohrbaugh's team the day before, was something to kind of look at. But unfortunately, Enfinger ends up getting collected in that incident there with Fincham. Takes him out of the race there. You could probably write that off as much to anything as Enfinger's first Xfinity start. Just wrong place, wrong time there. But I don't think that takes anything away from Godovic's gesture on that there for the 2016. And we hope that they'll be able to rebound at Texas in a couple weeks. That'll be another story that we'll be following very closely as well. Further back, surprise brake failure for AJ Allmendinger. 16 car, the bottom 5 there for the colleague team, something you don't see usually. I mentioned Ryan Sieg. I know a lot of people were pretty hard on him there for, once again, restarting on old tires. I think they're just in a situation now where they've just had so many problems this first part of the year. Some of them self-inflicted. He's had some situations where he gets, dumped out of the lead there, but also some that aren't so much his fault, where they had oil leaks, like I believe at Daytona and a couple other races that dropped him further back in the lineup. They're just kind of looking to get a win and get in. And sometimes it's a desperation move when you're out there on old tires, and it could have worked, it could have not, but certainly weren't expecting that he was going to get spun out there and just lose control there at the front of the field. And hate it for Josh Berry as well. He's trying to make the most out of the starts he's had, and even though he's now had his win in Martinsville, he's looking to get just one good run from one another there. Unfortunately, he got collected in that. Unfortunate also for Tommy Joe Martins. He was putting on a great show. Kudos to the Super Mega people there on YouTube. I think they were really kind of putting on an interesting show there for him, getting some exposure to the sport for maybe people that aren't as passionate about it or aren't watching it as much. I think they were doing a great job on social media, really ramping that up, and even kind of kind of boosting Tommy Joe up afterwards after he got involved in that ladder accident in turn 1. He did a great job missing that one on the backstretch with Sieg. That was really exciting to see. I think he was, I hope that maybe this is something that's either the beginning of a longer relationship there with the team to help get some sponsorship for the 44, or perhaps something that's going to attract other people into the sport that maybe weren't as interested in it before. I'm kind of reminded of the video that JonTron did with Garrett Smithley at the Roval a couple years ago, maybe kind of getting a younger fan base, or maybe a different, group that maybe isn't as familiar with stock car racing, really interested in it. Because again, there's one of the greatest things of the sport is you can be interested in any number of ways, if it's the team or if it's the back end of the field or the front of the field, or you just kind of like the way the cars look. There's any number of ways you can experience it, and finding your own way on it, I think is one of the good things there. So kudos to the people there at Super Mega on that. Looking further back, we talked about Daniel Hemrick and dropping further back in the lineup. Jay Buford getting in our top 20. It was good to see them get a little bit more screen time last week at COTA. They're a top 20 run for them. Jesse Little in the 18th spot there. Landon Castle, and we talked about Castle and Vargas. Got to talk about Ryan Vargas in the 16th spot after they swapped rides there. It's good to see both those JD Motorsports entries get up there. Even though teammate Colby Howard and Jeffrey Earnhardt had some more issues in the race and were further down in the lineup outside the top 20. Ones to look at there. Chase Briscoe, it looked like he was on his way to victory there. Great run with Ty Gibbs. Of course, can't ignore Ty Gibbs himself. Once again, without sponsorship on the 54, pulling off another victory there. I mean, he's been absolutely turning ahead since that win on the Daytona road course. Is easily a factor to win any of these races he's in. I know it's easy to say that. Of course, there's a lot of, he's got the last name. Yeah, it's the 54 car that Kyle Busch gets in. He's a start and win driver, but you still got to get it done. And there's a lot of drivers that jump into Joe Gibbs equipment that struggle a lot. And you talk about Daniel Hemrick, and you talk about other competitors that have gone through that organization and not been able to get it, done, or yet at that point, or just how much people like Harrison Burton struggled before they finally started winning. When Burton rattled off all those wins last year, the fact that Ty Gibbs has shortcut that and now been even more, these are not easy tracks to win at. I mean, the Daytona road course, they'd only ran there one other time before, and he pulls off that victory. Now he goes to Charlotte, where you have large entry lists, competitive qualifying. He starts in the 8th spot, so he qualifies great and then gets the win. That's still worth mentioning for sure, and certainly wish him only the best. And he's continuing to do well in the ARCA series. Great stories going ahead there. So I think that'll be, the more the merrier. The more interesting competitors you get in there, they're going to be fun to watch. It's going to be another story to look ahead on. And one thing that was great, I thought the race he had with Chase Briscoe was fantastic. I thought the side-by-side battles they had were great. So we'll certainly, look forward to more of that. I know Briscoe is just in there occasionally there in the Xfinity series. Of course, focusing more on his Cup rookie season. But it looked like it was going to go down to the wire there between those two. Very exciting, though. Got to say, that's a lot to certainly look at there for sure. Let's see. Anything else? Let me look at the Xfinity race. We'll talk about the broadcast in general. I definitely want to hit on that because there's a lot to unpack on that from all the races this weekend. I think that's probably – I should have named the live stream after that because I think that was going to be really more the main focus of tonight's discussion. Biff Gregel, thank you for your super chat as well. NASCAR needs to schedule a Cup race at Mid-Ohio next year. Would plug a huge hole with no more Kentucky and Pittsburgh area only 2 hours away. Very good call. That's another venue I would be okay with covering too. I mean, I'm already kind of starting to think about our 2022 schedule. 2021 is pretty much just going to be Sears Point, Texas, and then Phoenix at the end of the year. I'm not anticipating probably any big change on that unless something else presents itself along the way. But yeah, I mean, Mid-Ohio, the Xfinity Series is going to be running that week. Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah, I was thinking Texas was the next one for Xfinity. I guess Mid-Ohio really is. So there's Mid-Ohio the same weekend as Sears Point next week. That's going to be really the big story. So yeah, these storylines for Xfinity are going to carry over a little bit sooner. I forgot about that completely. We really need to get Xfinity out to Sears Point too. I know we have we had the ARCA Menard Series West, but maybe that'll be something further down the line. But yeah, thank you for bringing up Mid-Ohio. That would be another one to look at with the Cup Series there. I think they put on a great show there. I think the Keyhole is a fascinating part of the track there. I think the Xfinity Series has really brought in some interesting road course ringers there to really mix things up. We saw it at Coda even and the other tracks this year. I'll be interested to see who comes out there. I think Mike Harmon's team had, they had a couple road ringers where they had Mid-Ohio and Road America in like consecutive weeks. And now that they've really kind of struggled qualifying here these last couple weeks, they're going to have metric qualifying going forward from here. So hopefully they'll be in a better situation, but maybe we'll see some other opportunities for other competitors there next week and beyond. Let's see. But yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, we get a Cup date out there. Any more road course races on that, I think are certainly open, and we'll probably have some more deals on that. Yeah, Isaac McKissick, thank you for mentioning, Xfinity at Mid-Ohio next week. Can't forget that at all for sure. So that'll be one to certainly talk about. Let's see here. Let me go into it. So I guess the other thing that we really, really have to talk about. So it's going to be the elephant in the room, and we definitely have to approach it head on here in the broadcast, is broadcasting. Now, again, the bell that gets rung every single week. What's good? What's bad? What does the good stuff look like? What's the bad stuff look like? I still think a bad broadcast is something you notice when you see it. And I think between a lot of the races this weekend, we saw some pretty good examples of it. I know we haven't talked about the Truck Series race yet, and that's because that's directly relevant to this discussion here. What on earth was going on with the wreck there between Trey Hutchins and Johnny Sauter there entering the quad oval? There's a lot to unpack from this one. For those who perhaps didn't see the race there, Trey Hutchins had not qualified for a single Truck Series race this season because of metric qualifying. Finally gets a chance to start the race, ironically, after qualifying was rained out. Starts at the back of the field there, the only truck that the team had prepared for the number 14 team. He gets back out there, runs further back in the pack, not a contender for the win, but just trying to get to the finish. In the closing stages of the race, blows a right front tire in turn 3, hits the wall, slows down, coming to pit road, trying to get to pit road at the exit of turn 4. During this entire time, there is no indication that the caution flag ever came out. Even the driver himself said it didn't seem to see that the caution lights came on. At the same time, Johnny Sauter is arriving on the scene along with Drew Dollar with the rest of the pack. Sauter himself had bounced off the wall and made it to pit road the same way, slowing down and cutting down onto pit road. So NASCAR should have been aware that anybody that was having any problems coming down pit road was going to potentially be in that situation. But in this case, the situation, it was ignored. NASCAR's version of the story, which has since come out, was, according to Bob Pockrass's channel, that at the same time, Matt Crafton was blowing an engine and had come down pit road and was dropping oil around the track. The oil that may or may not have been on the track would have been in the same area that Trey Hutchins hit the wall. So how that could be an excuse, I'm not buying it, quite honestly. I think they just missed it. Somebody screwed up. And thankfully, nobody paid for it with their lives. That was a very dangerous, very stupid situation that shouldn't have happened. And I think there needs to be a top-down look between NASCAR themselves, their officiating, and the broadcast team. It all goes hand in hand. And this connects very much back to what we were talking about last week in COTA, how they completely missed the accident in the rain, admittedly, which involved Kevin Harvick, and then caught every moment and multiple angles of Martin Truex Jr.'s accident in the same rain moments later that caused NASCAR officiating to react the way they did in that race. I think we had a very similar situation in this one here, where, again, there's been real issues in the Truck Series broadcast in particular, not, I don't think, really appreciating the danger of the sport, perhaps just missing things and just kind of guessing what's happening rather than actually listening to the scanner or investigating what's going on in it. Michael Waltrip coming on the broadcast and trying to say, oh, well, you know, Trey Hutchins' truck was black and so we couldn't see it on the track or something. Like, that's absurd. You know, he hit the wall in turn 3. He's through 3 and 4 trailing Sparks and then coming out into the quad oval where this wreck happened. And also, if Matt Crafton was dropping oil and causing NASCAR to look that direction, that's in the same area. They should have been looking in the exact same spot where Hutchins was. I don't see how you missed that truck. And Michael Waltrip wasn't even right about the fact that the truck wasn't even black; it was blue. I mean, okay, I know that's a small distinction there, but you know, it's not saying that it's like it's a completely missable object there. But a terrifying accident there. Johnny Sauter slams into the back of Trey Hutchins' truck, shears off the right side of Sauter's truck. A wheel comes off one of the vehicles there. We don't hear any reports from the broadcast if Hutchins is okay. We just focus on Sauter's truck the whole time, and he takes a long time getting out of there. Both of them have their window nets up. Just an embarrassing situation on all fronts. And really just unfortunate. I'm glad. I'm very relieved that nothing serious happened. But I think NASCAR, again, and its broadcast partners need to treat things just a little bit more seriously. You know, it was mentioned Austin Dillon's wreck when NBC started doing their broadcast and how they handled that very frightening accident that happened in the tri-oval there. I would even extend Fox to be fair, the way they handled the Ryan Newman accident at Daytona, maybe not entirely appreciating the seriousness of it as it happened, but very clearly, you know, not unnecessarily speculating, not trying to give too much false information or anything like that on that, you know, trying to really just, you know, make sure that people understand it as best they can without exaggerating or concealing anything like that. It's a difficult thing. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but as I've always said on this show, you know, you should expect more from professionals. You should not be just okay with mediocrity from them. You should expect it. And I know even it's common in this internet culture that people call out this person and do that, and you know, somebody's bullied for this or something for that. Obviously, there are times that goes too far. Obviously, there are times where it's not appropriate and you know, real damage is done. But there's also damage done when people aren't working to the level that they should be. And I think that was a situation on all fronts, whether it was NASCAR officiating or the broadcast or some mix of the two. That was a problem. And I'm worried that if NASCAR was just looking at the broadcast, if the spotters were just looking at that, and we didn't see Hutchins' truck until after Sauter had slammed into him already, and we didn't know what had happened, that's one problem. if it's a situation where they were looking at another truck in the area and they didn't somehow see another truck that was right next to it in the same situation that they would have been looking at, that needs to be looked at. I'm not sure what the solution is. I hope there's some kind of an internal investigation there or whatever the solution should be there. But that's, it's an unfortunate situation, and it took away a lot from the race itself, which is unfortunate because I thought it was a pretty competitive race in that standpoint. Congratulations to John Hunter Nemechek on another win. Carson Hocevar in the mix has again been a great story to follow here these few weeks. Very nearly had that win over against John Hunter Nemechek. His day will come too. But I thought it seemed to capture perfectly a lot of the problems with the broadcast and NASCAR officiating together. And it was very fortunate for both involved that it wasn't more serious than it was. And I'm concerned because I'm now saying this 2 straight weeks, saying this back at COTA during the whole Cole Custer thing and all that stuff. And now again, this time around, again, there's some concerns there. And I think that that's something that needs to be looked at. So an unfortunate situation on that. I hope that things kind of get cleared up there. Hopefully in these next couple of weeks here, between these other events, we'll see maybe, some adjustments made along the way. But that's a whole other story on that. On the other flip side of that, fantastic job by the NBC crew for the Indy 500 broadcast today. That is a very good example of covering a race and making sure that everybody knows what is happening, why it's happening, even to the point where drivers that were on a pit cycle were not the ones that were being focused on. The ones that were off sequence, they would focus on who the lead would fall back to, which was absolutely critical in this race. The fact that they were able to make that adjustment and follow, for example, Alex Palau and Helio Castroneves and the other competitors at the front of the field, even when guys like Takuma Sato are staying up there. I mean, okay, yeah, they're the leaders, and maybe they're going to try to stretch it. But again, the presence of mind to be able to have the discipline and recognize that, this is the critical thing that's happening here. I found the pit strategy much easier to follow. I found the race much more engaging. And it's not just the fact that it was a great race itself. I mean, obviously it was much more competitive, tremendous amount of lead changes, almost too much action at some points there. But thankfully, a very safe race, a very competitive race, only a couple incidents on pit road. But, again, I thought the mastery and the maturity with which they handled that broadcast was fantastic. And unfortunately, even in the Cup Series race tonight, there were some, there was a lot of issues there, separate from the Truck Series race, where they're not really appreciating the danger of the sport and all this and what was going on there, and not giving us the information about, okay, what's going on with Sauter, what's going on with Hutchins, and everybody just having to use the internet. That's that whole Truck Series broadcast. It's becoming the equivalent of going to Best Buy and saying, oh, we don't have this thing you're looking for. You just go to our website. It's like, well, people are going to stop going to your store and they're just going to go to the website, right? Like, this store is just not going to exist because everybody's just going to go here. That's the problem the Truck Series one has to have. On the Cup Series side, they need to worry about focusing on what's actually happening in the race, period. If their concern is that they're trying to get more people to watch these races and be engaged in it, then they probably shouldn't do a complete non sequitur with Jay Leno and everybody during this and just completely ignore the race or just sound disinterested in what's happening on the track. If the race isn't interesting, as I tweeted during this, there's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things that all of us do when we watch it and you have a computer out. I mean, everybody has the same kind of experience, I think, these days. You're listening to the scanner, you're trying to find out what's happening with this driver or that driver. They almost even seem to do a through the field thing. I think Wookie was bringing that up on Twitter as well. These are the things that need to happen. And if you don't do those things, if you're just kind of sitting there and sounding bored, well, then the audience is going to get bored. And that has a direct effect on this. They could have very easily made more. And if they place this race within the proper context of the season, not just Kyle Larson and the fact that he's finished second the last couple of weeks, that's a good start. But let's also talk about Kyle Busch. Let's talk about Daniel Suarez. Let's talk about Michael McDowell. Let's talk about anybody else out in the field. That was something that should have been done. And you have a 600-mile race to do that. Now, this is not to say that their older broadcasts didn't have like things where they just kind of distract from the race. That's also not true. when you saw one of my videos, or even what I mentioned in the JD McDuffie book, the segment that was a profile on JD McDuffie on his career and the fact that he failed to qualify for the Daytona 500 was aired in the middle of Bill Elliott's dominant run in the 1985 Daytona 500. So people missed what was happening during the race. ESPN, who I constantly shout the praises of, they used to do like the Quaker State Track Fact. They would do things like that during the race, not even during a caution flag, during green flag runs. So you would miss stuff too. So this isn't really a new problem. It's just a problem. They're just creating new problems on top of it. And on top of this, just the palling around and all that. I mean, the tone of it is just it disappoints me to say that's unprofessional with a guy like Mike Joy and the caliber that he is. And I still think he's the steady hand on the wheel because he's been there the whole time. I don't really blame him for a lot of the situations with it. But when everybody's just kind of, laughing and all this other stuff here, they're missing stuff that's happening out on the track. And that's the unfortunate part of it there. And I hate to see that. Now, again, I know what you're also thinking at the same time. You compare this to the Xfinity Series race, we had the drivers only broadcast. And there's a lot to talk about with this as well. Now, I would say the Xfinity broadcast also failed to do what a proper broadcast should, like the Indy 500 did earlier today. The difference was it was just more relaxed. Like they didn't feel the need to shoehorn anything in. They played off each other really well. And this is something we just hardly ever see. You used to see this in commercials. We used to see this in pre-race segments that ESPN or TNN or CBS would do. We used to see this all the time. We very rarely see this now. And I think that's really a shame. I think that's something that contributes to this disillusionment that people have about the drivers and maybe not relating to them as well or understanding them as well. You don't get to see them play off each other, and poke fun at each other and stuff. You see a little bit like, Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace have a good dynamic. We saw that at COTA. There's other drivers, maybe you see that in the same situation there too. Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer, back when Boyer was still active, is kind of another example. But we don't get enough of that now. And I think the closest we get to that is this broadcast here. I think what would have been a better use of having these drivers like do a hangout is literally treat it like a hangout. And maybe have them watch a classic race and like be poking fun at each other and stuff like that. And maybe have a group of them doing that. I think that would be a great, you turn that into like a YouTube series and with all the old races and stuff you watch and maybe have like, I would leave like an announcer, like don't put it like a Rutledge Wood or a Mike Joy or any announcer type in there. Just have just the drivers themselves, like we saw in the broadcast, and have them play off each other. And I think that would be a great way to kind of bridge the gap between the old school stuff and the new stuff. And, saying like, oh, hey, that kind of reminds me of like, this race or something or, something like, I think that would be really entertaining. I think that's the one thing I had kind of an issue with the Xfinity broadcast. I liked how they were playing off each other. I just think that, maybe in terms of understanding what was happening during the race, that almost seemed kind of secondary. I can't blame the drivers for that. I think they were doing a good job of it. I still think it was much better than what we usually get out of, especially Xfinity broadcasts, which are kind of in the same vein as the truck broadcasts lately. But yeah, I think that I would like to see something more like that. Again, I just like seeing the drivers play off each other and to be seen to be playing off each other because I'm sure they get along. You see little drips and drags of it on social media, but that's not the same thing as actually hearing them and kind of loosening the reins a little bit here and letting these guys just kind of show some more personality. And I think that's something better for the sport. So I'd like to see much more of what we saw on Saturday. And I still think that a broadcast should be something a little bit more informative, again, closer to what we had in the IndyCar broadcast than even what we saw on the Xfinity side, but certainly further than what we saw in the Cup Series and especially the Truck Series this weekend. So a lot of good object lessons from this. I almost thought of putting a video together on this just based on what would happen at Darlington and kind of pointing out examples from all three of those races. But I think this weekend gave an even better example because I thought the Indy broadcast was fantastic. And, it may be a bit lopsided again because the racing was as good as it was. And congratulations to Helio Castroneves on his fourth Indy 500 win with a whole other team as Roger Penske, his old boss, is owning the track. Tremendous story. And I mentioned it on Twitter, and I'll mention it again here. Another thing that broadcast did perfectly was let the moments happen. Stop shoehorning stuff in. Stop flying in drones. Stop walking out to the finish line and getting the photographer's shots of a driver. Let him just do whatever he's going to do. If he's going to climb the fence, if he's going to walk around the track, if it's going to take the rest of the afternoon, just let him do it. And they did that. And I thought that was perfect. I thought it was shot well. They didn't try to talk over it. All of them did. Everybody in the booth just stayed out of it. The reporters on pit road stayed out of it. I mean, you got to see Mario Andretti like kiss the top of his head. I mean, yeah, I was getting choked up like everybody was. I'm like, man, this is huge. I mean, and then not just the fact that everybody likes Castro Neves. I mean, you got even Paul Tracy in there, and I know he would have reason to be still frustrated about 2002, but huge moment, huge, and it was allowed to play out. They didn't do some shot of the wives on pit road. They didn't do the Kim Burton thing. Everything was just, it was perfect. It was perfect. And those moments I still believe are happening, even in NASCAR races, even in like the cup races, even if a cup race isn't particularly good or Xfinity race or a truck race, those moments are still happening, but they're not allowed to play out. You shoehorn commercials in, you shoehorn this in or that in. I think that Indy 500 broadcast should be studied as what needs to happen. I thought Lee Diffie did a great job. I like Townsend Bell and Paul Tracy. I like their pit reporters. I thought they were doing great. I liked Danica Patrick. I thought she was fine on the roof there. I thought she was good. And the gentleman that she was with there for those segments, I thought those were good. They were talking about the weather conditions and stuff, and I had no problem with that. I mean, again, even a lot of broadcasters maybe I'm not a big fan of, I still like to believe that maybe they fit in better in other elements. We saw this with Vince Welch on pit road. I thought he picked up right where he usually does there. I thought he was much better there than he ever usually is in the booth there. I think people just find different places for him, and sometimes it's a matter of moving people around. We saw that with Jamie Little in the ARCA series, and hope she seems like she's working well with that. So but again, I thought great race. Stephen Wilson, your last place finisher of that. I'm not going to do an article on that. Enjoyed putting the statistics out during that, but again, great race, great battle there. I think it would be really interesting to see going forward. If there's any changes made to broadcasts, but there does need to be a little bit of an adjustment there. And I'll be interested when NBC picks up the schedule. I guess they're picking up in Nashville in a couple weeks, if there's any changes from there. Great job by the folks there at NBC. Great broadcast they put together. Entertaining race. I mean, good, fast, safe race. Very enjoyable to watch. I mean, they're re-airing it. I wonder what the ratings were on the re-air. So that would have been really interesting to see too. I saw a couple. I think I saw at least one super chat on here. Let me jump on these. I definitely ranted on that longer than I thought I was going to, but I knew this was going to kind of blur all together there. Let's see. Michael Jensen, thank you for your super chat there. NASCAR needs a safety crew like IndyCar, same group that goes to each race instead of locals by track. Absolutely agree. I think is it still the whole Matro team? I know it used to be an IndyCar, but whoever they've done a great job over there. And I know they've had some tragedies. Obviously, Justin Wilson's accident, what happened to Robert Wickens, but I think the fact that Wickens is still with us, and and everything is again, nothing could be done with Wilson's thing. That was, I think the legacy of the aero screen on there, I think is fantastic to to behold there, and the freaky tire situation with Colt. I almost say Colton Herta, but no, that was Derek Daly's kid. Connor Daly, right? Gosh, so much happened today. Great advancement on that. I know it deflected off the nose of the car there, but a great advancement on that side. But yeah, the safety crew thing, that's something that needs to be kind of reevaluated. I mean, Formula One went through this during the dark days of Imola in '94. IndyCar has found a way to work with it here in these more recent years. I think NASCAR should evaluate, especially with their schedule being as long as it is. I'm sure progress has been made in one way or another, but it wouldn't hurt to kind of look at more permanent option there to kind of work with there, to be something to kind of work forward with. And certainly in a situation where, we had back at Charlotte there, again, that situation there, and the timeliness of the response, I mean, that was a problem in and of itself. But I think that again, I'm much more concerned on the officiating and the broadcast there in general. And then that trickled down to the dispatch rate was probably hampered in that sense. It certainly didn't help because if the caution, I've talked a lot about let the rest of the field get to the finish line unless the wreck is at the finish line there, then to throw a caution, confuse everybody, and wait to slow them down. I think it's going to be the same response rate one way or the other. But clearly in this situation, it's a quite different situation. The closing laps of the race, a single truck accident, and it had all the hallmarks. When you saw the wreck at the first time, it had all the hallmarks that somebody stopped on the track. Should have never happened. Nobody's perfect, but again, you should expect more from professionals. And it's not a simple Twitter rage or something when something like this happens. It's serious. It's life and death, and it should be treated more seriously. And like I say, there's a line between having fun and being complacent, and NASCAR has flirted with that these last couple of weeks. And again, we had that issue with the heat issue a couple of years ago, and it looks like they finally kind of addressed that. Now we're got to look at this part. We got to look at this one. It's a never-ending process, and you tweak a little here, a little there, and maybe somewhere down the line you don't have to make those same changes again. And but unfortunately, these are the things that have to happen along the way. And the first step is acknowledging there's a problem to begin with, because if you just pretend everything's hunky-dory, that's where you're really setting yourself up for a problem. And I'm a big advocate of that, and I apply that to my stuff too. Look, if there's something that's slipping, if it's not working as well, I mean, again, I get a sense people get concerned when they're suggesting a change or criticizing something I produce. Please do tell me. I want it to be better. I still want these shows to be better. So it's not a matter of putting this all out there and not trying to stand by the same standard here. So yeah, I mean, I've gone too far down the rabbit hole on that, but that's basically where I am on that. But I do agree with your statement there, Michael Jensen, on the safety crew for sure. Alex Viveros, thank you for your super chat as well. I will be shocked if Ty Gibbs is not full-time Xfinity or trucks in 22, possibly move Brandon or Harrison to Cup, or have have 4 full-time cars in Xfinity. Absolutely. I mean, Ty Gibbs, he's in the same category with Josh Berry right now. I think both of them. I would be very surprised if both of them weren't full-time in something next year. Traditionally, in years past, before you had charters in the Cup Series, it was common that if somebody really took off, they would swap into a ride midway through the season and suddenly be the big name. David Gilliland's career, Todd Gilliland's father, started that way. In 2006, he won that Xfinity race for an underfunded team in June of 2006. Next week, he was in a Dutch Quality Stone-sponsored car at Sears Point, and pretty soon after that, he was replacing Elliott Sadler at Yates Racing, which he ended up staying with for the next couple of years and launched his career. You just don't see that as much these days with the charters and teams being what they are. You don't usually see a lot of mid-season driver changes. Kyle Larson's thing last year, of course, was a very exceptional situation in that regard. So you have situations there. I think that's kind of been more the trend is things that happen on social media or things that happen online, I guess, really more than just a regular, driver non-performance from one moment to the next. But yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, Ty Gibbs, and I would again attach Josh Berry on that. I think if they aren't full-time in something, I think Berry certainly in Xfinity, and yeah, Ty Gibbs in Xfinity. I think you win 2 Xfinity Series races. I don't care who you're driving for. I mean, you should be full-time Xfinity at the very least. I mean, you're going against guys like Ross Chastain and stuff that have been trying to kind of get in there, and Chastain's now got his Cup Series ride. It seems hard to argue against that for sure. Yeah. Okay, Alex Viveros, thank you for your other super chat there. Okay, that 14 truck needs to know how to keep his truck on the wall. NASCAR has to throw the yellow faster, but he has to know better. Very good point. But again, as I mentioned in the discussion earlier, Johnny Sauter did the same thing, where he bounced off the wall, slowed down, And this time was early enough in the race that the field was close enough together that he had an opening to get down to pit road. That's an officiating problem. What NASCAR needed to do was go over that in the drivers' meeting and say, look, if you have a tire go down, stay against the wall. Don't try to drive to pit road. Clearly, this was an issue. It became more clear during the race itself. Maybe they weren't prepared for that. But now that they've seen that this has happened, that's something they need to look at. I think it's being a little harsh on Hutchins for not staying in the wall there. And even if he did, it still doesn't excuse the fact that NASCAR didn't throw that caution there longer. I think, again, you can chalk it up to inexperience, the fact that he shouldn't have been out there, that he shouldn't have tried to do anything with the flat tire, maybe just stay in the wall in turn 3. But again, I don't know what other forces were at play, if he couldn't stay in the wall, if the truck was starting to slide down the banking and he was in that situation. I don't know, because the broadcast didn't show us. So it kind of goes hand in hand with that too. But yeah, that goes to an officiating concern. And this shouldn't be an unpredictable thing, because they've had races at Charlotte since 1960. I mean, they've had the first World 600 had several drivers disqualified because they cut off the entrance to pit road. So that particular area of the track has been a problem for many years. I agree with you. I agree with your statement to a point. That's something that, I mean, obviously in hindsight, it would have been safer to stay up in the wall. But then again, the truck was still rolling, and, it was in a situation where, you had, traffic going by at full speed. It still doesn't excuse the officiating. I have a harder time blaming Hutchins than I do the officials first and foremost, and then the broadcast second of all, for not making more of the situation, and also potentially not showing it on camera. Are there camera people missing it? If that's what NASCAR was looking at, that needs to be looked at very closely and very seriously, because I don't want to be talking about that every week, because at some point, they're not going to be as lucky. And I'm not hoping for any of that. Nobody wants it. But if you really want to make sure that doesn't happen, they need to learn from this, and they need to do that yesterday. They need to do that quickly. And it's a top-down problem, and it almost takes an outside force to do it. And I don't know what that would be, whoever they're beholden to. But the only reason that they're going to, one thing we know is that more often than not, they make a response to these things once somebody actually says something about it. So the more it stays in the conversation, hopefully it's something that, is something that's going to be addressed. But I do appreciate you bringing it up there, because that's certainly a situation with what was going on there. Also, kudos to Marcus Lemonis. I understood he won an NMPA award recently for, I think it was the Pocono Spirit Award, for his sponsorship of the underfunded teams out there. Have to agree with the choice on that. That's a great choice on that. And then he, in fact, has stepped in on the whole Trey Hutchins situation, and apparently said, look, give him my number. Hopefully something works out there where they're able to get either their other truck back together, or something worked out there to get him back on the track. Hopefully we'll see him in Texas, because the Truck Series isn't running Mid-Ohio. They're going to run back in Texas. So there'll be another story further down the line there. I don't know how the metric's going to work out with the points that he earned from the wreck there, but that'll be something to look at on that end too. So fingers crossed on that whole situation. Something very similar to what you're going to see in the video this week here on Carl Long, and we'll certainly talk about that coming up. Thank you again, Super Chat there on Beast of Metal. My goodness. Even with the Larson thing, the interim wasn't Chastain or another hotshot young gun. It was a fossil whose skills and physical traits had almost completely eroded. Sorry, Kenseth fans. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that was, I know when the Larson thing happened, the initial speculation was it was going to be Chastain. I thought that was still the thing I really took exception to in that whole thing, and this is kind of an aside from that, was just the glee with which people were like, "Oh boy, Chastain's going to be in it because he's in trouble." That was a whole other story there from that, but there was a lot that was unfortunate from that whole situation, and the Kenseth part of it is another part of it too. When Kenseth got in that car there, it's unfortunate he struggled a lot there, had a lot of bad runs there. Although I thought even then, Kenseth did a great job at Indianapolis, a race that he'd still never won, and the last chance he really had to do it, last chance anybody apparently is going to if they're going to run the infield road course now. That whole situation there. But yeah, it's that was a rough situation there on that. I'm glad Chastain got the ride finally. I think it's unfortunate that he had the problem early today in the 600 because I thought he had all the momentum in the world from Coda. I thought he was going to have an outside shot at actually winning that race if it went the full distance. Unfortunately, the rain cutting it short there with Chase Elliott. I was very impressed with him, and hopefully he picks up where he left off at Charlotte there to kind of get a better run at Texas. I don't know what things are going to look like at Sears Point. I know at Sears Point last time in 2019, he had just won the Truck Series race at Gateway after getting the Iowa win taken away from him, and came in the night before, and in kind of a precursor to what we see now, got into the car without any practice or qualifying, and actually had a decent finish. Didn't finish in last place, at least. Driving for Premium Motorsports, now comes back to that same track for the first time since then, driving for Chip Ganassi's team. That'll be a whole other one to look at there too. So yeah. Let's see. It's Book a Brickyard for Annette. Yeah, there you go. Sam Mayer is something special too, racing in excess. Yeah, that too. Yeah. We'll see what happens on that. Let's see. Barry's deal with JRM ends soon though. Well, yeah, but I mean, again, there's other teams out there. I'm sure anybody that saw that Martinsville win and that great run he had at Darlington against Algar, they would be silly to not pick him up. I think he's definitely a diamond in the rough for sure. We'll see what happens on that. All right. Let's see. Anything else? Let's see. We got the Xfinity race. Okay, we talked about that. Yeah, unfortunately for Ryan Sieg, that was a bummer. The Truck Series last place finisher, I believe that was the Rackley War team, wasn't it? That was the let me get that results on that. I'll kind of touch on that a little bit. Yeah, the backup truck for Timothy Peters, his first last place finish, I believe, since 2007 was the story. Backup truck had all kinds of problems with the steering at the beginning, and power steering fluid had to get refilled. Ended up falling out very early in the race. Excuse me. Tate Vogelman, Brett Holmes, Sheldon Creed, and Chase Purdy rounding out the bottom five in the Truck Series there. Again, congrats to John Hunter Nemechek. Very excited for Carson Hocevar. I still think he's potentially the driver of the season in that series in terms of great story there. Great to see Ty Majeski do well in his return to the series, finishing in the 7th spot. ThorSport has fantastic equipment. Not the best paint schemes, quite honestly, but, that's just the visuals. But good run for him there. I was surprised to see them run the 66 again, but it's good if they're doing that to bring other guys in that need another shot. And Majeski, I think, certainly qualifies for that. Let's see. Further down the lineup there. Yeah, a lot of other difficult runs there. We mentioned the Sauter thing for sure. Yeah, Sheldon Creed and so forth. Gosh, I guess that was the other thing with the IndyCar race today. We had in the Indy 500, we had great runs with Santino Ferrucci was in the top 10. And gosh, who else was in there? He had also, who was the other guy? Was it Sage Karam? Did he get a top 10? I think he was up there. He seemed like he was at the end there when the field was kind of shuffling a little bit with the pit strategy. They got up there. What was it? Yeah, Karam in the 7th spot. Ferrucci in 6th. There were so many people I was impressed with. I haven't followed IndyCar as closely the last 2 or 3 years since they stopped doing the finale at Sonoma, at Sears Point rather. I haven't followed it as closely as I used to. Back when Will Power was going for championships, I watched it a lot more of the races. But a lot of these guys like Alex Palau in particular, he just went absolutely all over the track, was matching the 3-time champion, now 4-time champion Castroneves move for move. Very impressed with him. But it really looked like Rinus VeeKay and what was the other one? Colton Herta. It looked like they were going to be like 1 and 2 for the entire race there. Very impressed with them. Scott Dixon getting back into the show after that weird situation with the stall there. Unfortunately, Alexander Rossi wasn't as fortunate getting back into it. This is the first time, those of you that are big IndyCar fans, this is the first time we've had a 0 number win the Indy 500, like a 0-6 or a 0-3. I know Graham Rahal finished last in the 06 a few years ago in the race, but it seems like that would be a first because I think that's more of a recent phenomenon than long-time IndyCar. If anybody knows in the chat, definitely mention for sure. Let's see. Confirmation 07, thank you for the super chat on that. Yeah, absolutely. It seems like the Xfinity cars were running laps faster than the Cup cars, for sure, big time. I'm reminded of kind of when I talked with Joe Nemechek at Darlington in 2019, when he was hopping back and forth between this current 550 package and the Xfinity car. He says that if you drove the Xfinity cars like the Cup cars, you probably drive the car like straight through the wall, because you have to really use a lot more brake and slow the thing down. Whereas the Cup car, you just got to mat it all the way around the track. Huge difference. Yeah, huge difference for sure. I think again, a lot of the luster of the 600, certainly this package is terrible for the 600. I mean, it's unfortunate. You get all these dominant runs, which are impressive at one blush, but are becoming a little too commonplace. And then the stages, having the 4 100 lap stages there, it diminishes the accomplishment of the race, because you could have, what if you have like a 250 lap green flag run? What if you have like even a 150 lap green flag run? With green flag pit stops and all this stuff. I think when you just have these 100 lap runs, they're so easy to break down. You get the same scenario we're seeing at a lot of the road courses, and this is something that hopefully we won't see as much at Sears Point, but might still potentially. Cautions coming out so predictably that it's really hard to work out a decent strategy in the third stage. When you have these 4 evenly matched stages, you get a similar scenario than you had to the All-Star race did back in 2008, when they had it was like 450 lap segments, and Casey Kane just kind of rolled through it. That's something that needs to be looked at. I mean, I'm not sold on the stage thing, especially the stage cautions. If they have to do stages, don't throw the yellows for them. Just tabulate the points. That goes back to the broadcast as well, to kind of just tabulate them, keep track of them as we're going through the race. That'd be something else to look at, but I don't know. Too many things to look at, that's for sure. But yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, the Xfinity cars is a lot faster. Let's see. Yeah, I hate the stages. Yeah, I definitely would too. Yeah, David Land would know. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't watched his post-race videos or anything on that yet. I still want to know where he finished on the go-kart. I sponsored his go-kart at the Battle of the Brickyard earlier this year, and I emailed him. I'm trying to find out where he finished, and I'm worried that he finished last and he doesn't want to tell me, or he does want to, or I don't know, so I don't know. I saw he did the video. He did a very brief review video compared to the other one there. But yeah, I was happy to do it. I enjoyed it. He gave me a really good spot on his go-kart, so I don't mind mentioning it. But I want to know where he finished. I need to know where he finished. I can't find the results anywhere. So also in the chat, yeah, if you guys have results for the Battle of the Brickyard, the go-kart race this year, if you have that information, let me know. We'll do the show here in a bit too. First time a 0 number 1 and Matt Parsons. Okay, that would be a new one too. Yeah, that's stage yellows. You would have 2 yellows and a 250 lap run to the finish. Well, maybe that's fine. That's fine. Maybe you would have. I mean, again, talk about record speed. We had that at the Indy 500 with very few cautions. So yeah. Okay. Let's see. I think I've beaten this enough here between these top 3 races, and I know he just touched on the Indy 500, a little sprinkle here and there, but I definitely wanted to touch on that as well. Number 2 is won 11 times at Indy. Wow. Okay, that's an interesting stat. So that'll be definitely one to look at too. All righty. So we're going to jump into our show and tell segment. This is going to be in a couple of phases here. We'll do some trivia here too. Thank you, those of you, for tuning in here. I know it's been kind of a longer haul here and entirely too many rants, but I am very much jacked up on quality broadcasts and Code Red, and I'm ready to go the distance here tonight on the show here. So thank you so much for tuning in on this. Adam Stern says it's expected that Brad leaves the 2. Ryan Blaney's quote did seem to indicate that. Thank you for the super chat, of course, Alex Viveros. But yeah, the fact that it sounded like Blaney was already congratulating him on the opportunity, I still think that's pretty surprising. I think the 2 is still a great ride, but sometimes, as we saw with Castroneves today, maybe a change of scenery does you good, and that's Kez has been in that ride for a long time, pretty much since his first win. After he won that race for Phoenix Racing. So that'd be one to talk about. All right. Let's see. So before we get into the first part here with the trivia here, I definitely got a couple of things to show. So as I mentioned a couple times already, and I'll mention it again, The next 2 weeks, I'm going to be covering the races trackside. In what faculty, how much access I'll have, what we'll be able to see, I have zero idea. Things are I haven't received credentials for either event yet. I have applied for both. Fingers crossed, we'll find out. I do have tickets purchased for both events, though, and I have already made travel arrangements for both races. So we are going to get last place coverage for both events. I will work to make sure you guys get that. My patrons have been extremely patient, and I've been amazed how many have stayed through all the crazy stuff that's happened since the last time we've covered races, and I can't thank them enough for their support there. If you're interested in joining any level, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock is the link. And I certainly wanted to make sure I brought this up, so I did the show a little bit later. I had to grab this here. This just came in the mail this week. I showed it on the Twitter feed, and I'll show it again tonight. The magnet is in the regular one here. I guess I should probably keep it far from the microphone here. But yes, the Last Car door magnet. I think it's a little difficult to kind of explain, at least in 240 characters. But yeah, every one of the races that we've done since the Patreon started, I guess it was Darlington, the most sport trip that we had that was exciting. We had some people join on board. We have a few names here that just joined on since I got this thing ordered. This is a 12 by 18 inch magnet, like a dinner platter size there. So the great thing is, those that are already on here, I said back in 2020, it's like, look, when this pandemic's over, we cover another race. Anybody that was in the Patreon, even if you were just in there for a day, if you were there for an hour, your name is on this. And so that's yeah, I think we got like 44 people in there now. I think this is like closer to 50 here. So all their names are on here, including the 3 people that are on there. If anybody else joins up, I'll handwrite your name in there. Great thing with this, and what I really enjoy doing with this too, of course, great way to have you guys ride along with me there. I put it on the door of my car, my personal car for Sears Point, and then this will also be on our rental car when we're in Texas for the All-Star race. So whatever faculty we're covering the race there, you guys are going to be riding along with me here for sure. So if you want to join this, and you want your name on this year, if you join even the $1 level or anything in between now and June 13th, I'll handwrite your name in there, and you will be entered in a drawing to win this. And I will mail it back in the same cardboard sleeve that it got sent to us in, and so that'll be here too. So I definitely wanted to show that in the show tonight. But that is not the only thing that I wanted to show here tonight too. So we'll jump into that here as well. Let's see. Let me make sure I get this jumped up. I want to pull this up. Where is it? Okay. So I want to show something else here. So I have a different thing to show off here for our show and tell segment. I recently got in touch with a person here, and I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning him by name, Nate Zimmerly, whose father was tragically no longer with us, passed away in 2010, was the spotter for Dave Marcus, the famous owner-driver for many years. And his son reached out to me a couple weeks ago and said that he had a collection of old pictures from Marcus's career and other stuff from his father's collection, if I was interested in any of it. And I'm like, my goodness. I was like, yes, absolutely. I mean, anything in the racing history, I'm absolutely interested in. I think, I know certainly of anybody that, anything that was of particular significance or anything like that with his career. So I definitely wanted to make sure to kind of feature this on the show tonight. So I got some stuff here that I definitely want to show as part of this. A lot of this, I think what worked out here, this showed up in a box just this past week, a binder with several pictures in it, as well as some others. And it kind of ties into the whole weekend here between both the IndyCar and the 600 here. So without further ado, let me take this out because this has address on it. First of all, big Bobby Allison fan for sure. I got some great pictures in of the 1988 Daytona 500 champion. Look at some of these pictures here. You got Dave Marcus's car from the 1994, the inaugural Brickyard 400 there. I mean, signed on this one. I mean, I was just blown away when I opened this. Shots of the STG car, National Semiconductor, the STG entries here. I mean, just incredible pictures here. I can't thank him enough here, and I definitely wanted to feature it on the show here to kind of give him a shout out here. The Cyber Dave card. This is one of the most famous cards that you usually see. The Prodigy Internet one with the old Prodigy email address that Dave Marcus had there, and I think this was '96. So just a whole different time period there. Gosh, I mean, there's other ones here. Let's see. We got. What's this? Is this Jason Rudd here? Let's see. I guess we can just go ahead and flip through it here. We got Greg Biffle in the Busch Series. Several of Marcus's cars, though. Again, the Real Tree car here. I mean, again, so many great paint schemes that he ran over the years here. Definitely wanted to show for sure. Let me pick out some. There's some particularly good ones in here. You got anybody remember Hank Parker Jr.? Or no, this is not Hank Parker Jr. This is Ash Lewis Jr. There you go. You want to talk about the Civil Air Patrol entry on this? So that's pretty neat. Yeah. Going Saturday and Sunday, Kyle Foster? Absolutely, both days. That's the plan there for Sears Point next week. So that is that. And I saw also, let me mention this also. I'm going to retweet this also after the show. We did a great interview with Kyle Foster there that I spoke with him. He covered his first NASCAR race in 2019 at Sears Point, also with Jennifer over there at the Sonoma Raceway. Had a great discussion about it, about the upcoming races there. I wanted to retweet that because that got some really interesting discussions there. So if you're looking for some more content tonight, we certainly have that as well for you. This one I really like here. Look at this one. You got a shot of Bobby Allison here and Miller High Life Buick. I mean, just gorgeous. I'm not sure who the artwork is. This, gosh, I can't read the monitor. Let's see. Manharden, I think the last name is there on that. Terry Manharden. I mean, just tremendous work though. Really appreciate it for sure. And I just have to find a good place for this for sure. In the meantime, so I'll probably post some more of this further along the ways here. But one other aspect of it that's particularly poignant, I thought, and I think it ties more into the IndyCar weekend this weekend. The spotter there for Marcus's team, he was also a very big Penske Racing fan growing up, and as a kid, he actually wrote a fan mail letter to Roger Penske back when Mark Donohue was driving for him, and almost 50 years later, not quite 50 years later, after his Indy 500 win, you see in this collection here is what was mailed back to him back from that time. And there's some very interesting pieces in this. Let me definitely show this here. So, of course, some old articles there from Donohue's Sunoco. I believe it was a Sunoco sponsored entry there from back then. Interesting shots from this. Let's see. There we go. How about this? I think this is Watkins Glen in this shot here. You got that. I mean, my goodness. So, really interesting stuff on this. If this is boring you guys, we'll jump into the other part there. But I definitely wanted to show this because I thought this is just endlessly fascinating. Gosh, how about this? Here's something. Talk about something from a time period here. You got the Ontario Motor Speedway here and Mark Donohue's IndyCar on that. I mean, look at that. I mean, just a tremendous shot there. A track that doesn't exist anymore. Of course, Donohue, we tragically lost him after a head injury, suffered in an accident there. Absolutely incredible. I got a picture of the Javelin here. Let's see. Where is it? There we go. Got one that was take a look at this. Here we go. There we go. How about that? The AMC Javelin right there. I mean, this is like, yeah. I mean, he said this stuff. I was like, look, I mean, this is, this stuff is like so personal. I mean, are you sure you're cool? I mean, we hadn't even talked before. We were talking on Twitter there, doing some private messages there. And he says, look, I've got plenty to remember my father by. I just want to make sure that, this goes to a good place. They had lost some of the, the stuff that they had, but he wanted to make sure that this went to a good place. And I certainly hope that, I could, one day be worthy of that, certainly. So, I put the PO box out there and stuff like that. I never expect to, hear anything, or anything on that, but I was blown away by this for sure. So I definitely wanted to share that. with you guys on that too. I may post some more pictures from that collection there too, but those are definitely the leads on that one as well. So we have that there. So definitely a tie-in with the greatest spectacle in racing. I think it was the 1972 winner of the Indy 500, if I remember correctly, was Mark Donohue. So again, tremendous figure. I think it was even Jayski's favorite driver, if I remember correctly as well. So there was certainly that. Let's see. Oh, Matt Parsons, you're gonna be at Texas? Yeah, no, I'm gonna be in the Fort Worth area that whole weekend. We're gonna be arriving on Wednesday, staying through that month. I think we fly back on the following Monday. That's the plan at the moment. So we'll certainly be doing that. All right. So let's see. Okay, first win for Penske and McLaren. Well, there you go. Hey, it real puts that certainly in perspective there as well. So definitely wanted to show that tonight. But yeah, Dave Marcus, always a big fan of seeing anything for the independent drivers there. And yeah, and then I guess again, Mark Donohue, the last. Well, actually, a good tie-in to Sears Point coming up here. I mean, Mark Donohue was the last road course ringer to win a Cup Series race, win a Cup race. I mean, we've had Ron Fellows and Boris Said win some races in the lower divisions, but I believe was it 1973, if I remember correctly, at Riverside in the Javelin there. The last time we've had a Cup road course ringer do it. I mean, even Jerry Nadeau, I guess, would be in that conversation of being close to it. But yeah, not quite in that sense. But another legacy of his career, certainly that still lives on to this day. So I want to go ahead and we'll do some trivia questions there. I know it's been a long show here tonight, but I hope you've enjoyed it for sure. In the meantime, I've certainly am amped up to return to trackside coverage here in these next couple of weeks. I know the 600 may not have been the most exciting race, but we'll certainly wrap up our Memorial Day show with some trivia here for tonight. So we'll wind down with this. Again, we'll go back to the 1990s Trivial Pursuit device. Whichever category you guys like, go ahead and mention in the comments below. Maybe I'll show some more pictures here in the book here while you guys pick your category. Categories, again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So again, the categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories. Whoop, okay. I want to drop it right on the keyboard. I'm sure I'll end up just doing that. Yep, 1973. There you go. I almost got the urge to read Black Dune again. Art Garner did just such a fantastic job on that book, and I've only read it the once. I almost read it a second time after I finished it, but tremendous detail in that, and just a real feat of research. I hope to. Between the Derek Cope book and the next project I'm working on there too. Oh gosh, I haven't even talked about the Carl Long thing yet. We got that coming up too. While I go through this here too. So again, as I posted, thank you for the positive response there on the video trailer. I want to kind of take a different approach to kind of actually show clips from the video rather than just clip out the opening there. I think in this one you'll see in particular why I did that. This Carl Long project has taken certainly longer than I thought it was going to, but I was originally going to release it this weekend and push it one more week. But I'm very excited to say that as of the beginning stages of this race, I finished rendering both parts of the Carl Long video. And so I'm going to watch them to make sure they're pretty much ready, but I'm pretty sure these versions are going to be pretty much what's going to be aired. So those are going to be airing this Thursday and Friday. It's going to be a 2-night event on the story of Carl Long, episode 7. Rise of the Field Fillers, and we're going to do a premiere right here on this channel. It's going to be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern or 5:30 p.m. Pacific on both nights. The reason it's a little bit later is that's kind of works with my work schedule on Thursday. I'm going to be off on Friday. I thought of moving it up a little bit earlier on Friday, but I'll keep it at the same time so it's easier for everybody to catch up on. So yeah, Thursday, this coming Thursday, I think it's the 3rd. At 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on this channel. It'll be part 1. Those of you who are in the Patreon, you'll have access to it the day before on Wednesday the 2nd, probably around the same time, really around that evening there, if not earlier. So you'll have time to see it before the premiere if you'd like. Again, that's for the $5 and up members in the Patreon. Also, the advantage of that too is if you join any the $5 and up level, you will also be able to see part 2 immediately after part 1 in the Patreon. I'm going to post the advanced access to it at that same time, during the premiere of part 1, so you'll be able to see it right after there as well. And then, of course, the premiere for part 2 will be on Friday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern and 5:30 Pacific. So very excited to get this one. There's no shortage of it. Big thanks to Brian Hallman for the pictures he provided, both his as well as Jerry Hayslip's pictures. Carl Long Motorsports, the great collection that they have, very comprehensive history of it. And, of course, the man himself, Carl Long, was interviewed for the project. I did interview him in addition to the other interviews that are publicly available online or also used in the project. Very excited to get that together for you guys. So that's coming up. Gosh, it's going to be busy week, but very fun to do that. Since we don't have any track activity on Friday at Sears Point, I thought it was a really cool idea to kind of have something special set aside for that. And this just kind of worked out that way. So that's going to be the goal going forward. Let's see. Yeah, and especially and I think the timing is perfect after this race here and the concerns over David Starr's minimum speed here. I think this will be a good way to kind of fully contextualize what that driver and that team really have accomplished in the time that they've been there. And so I hope it does it justice. I hope it does. So I'm very excited to bring that to you guys. A couple other pictures here in the meantime. Let's see what we got. Let's see. You got Casey Mears, Busch Series ride here, the Phillips 66. I think is this. Oh gosh, is this? Oh, it's Mark Green. Okay, there we go. I thought it was Christian Elder there. But yeah, Mark Green and the one Jeff Green's. I think older brother, if I remember correctly, or younger brother. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. The late great Sam Bass, of course. Oh, you see the Hut Strickland one under there. There's a showstopper. Circuit City car. Unfortunately, this throwback didn't quite happen when that one team closed down before Darlington a couple of years ago. But yeah, I got that one back on the list. Let's see. Some of these are quite recent. You got Matt Kenseth from the 2003 championship on here. Let's see. There's a Gordon. You got a. Let's see. There we go. Here's Bubba Wallace back when he was driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. Got Joe Nemechek here, the Nemco Motorsports entry. Might be something more we do with him a little further down the line. Oh, is this we got IndyCar here. Got Tony Kanaan. There we go. It's Vickers. Is that stuck together here? Hang on. There we go. There's Kanaan. You got TK here. There we go. So yeah, I mean, really interesting collection of cards. I want to kind of know more of the story behind them here as well. Oh gosh, I forgot about these pictures. Hang on. I got a couple more things to show here. He took some, if you want to get a good idea of how close to the action, I know he was the spotter, but also he got some good shots from pit road. I think this is 96 or let's see, hang on. Does it have a date here? That one's 99. This one's like, I think 97 here. A great panoramic shot with the Intimidator here walking down pit road at Daytona. Hopefully that comes off here. Let's see. There we go. There's the shot from pit road there with the 71 on pit road. I guess I think it was 96 at Daytona when they had the rain short race in July. There you go. Love that Larry Hedrick car there in the foreground with the 41 on it. Yeah, no, really neat stuff there. There you go. So yeah, I think somebody I see the comments there. Yeah, the Vickers. Yeah, there's a Vickers card in here too. I'm sure you saw. Let me bring that out. Let's see. No, I mean, again, absolutely just blown away here. I need to once we get to a point here, I have to kind of reorganize this and get it just find a good way to show these here. Yeah, here you go. There's the Vickers right there. There you go. So obviously, well, I would actually stay out of that one. What other? Yeah, goodness. So anyway, let me get the other tracks one, by the way. Okay, it looks like we're good on that one. Okay. Yeah. Tracks, pits, Tracks. Okay, yeah, tracks and a walk. Okay, so let's go and do some tracks question here, and we'll wrap up the show here tonight. Anything else I didn't touch on the show tonight? Definitely let me know, and we'll talk about that as well. So we'll jump into that. Okay. So let me get to the tracks category. All right. Okay. First question of the night. What track hosted Myers Brothers Memorial Races during the 60s? What track hosted Myers Brothers Memorial Races during the 60s? Don't look it up. Try to guess it on that. What track hosted Myers Brothers Memorial Races during the 60s? Yeah, Hutt, Alabama gang. There you go. Yeah, running mostly unsponsored. Yeah, I'm sure they got they got backers. They make something work out there. There we go. Do. Sorry, just checking on this here. Alrighty. Well, what track hosted Myers Brothers Memorial Races during the 60s? The answer is Bowman Gray. Oh, it actually has it hyphenated. Is that not proper? I think it's not hyphenated. It's like Castronev is that way. It's just literally 2 words. Okay, Bowman Gray is indeed the correct answer. Jesse Krill, I think you were the first on that one. Uh-oh, make sure we didn't lose connection here. Thought the chat wasn't refreshing there for a second. Oh, they say inspection's complete. Let me confirm that there. Let's see. Not that one. Where'd it go? Couple owner points. Kyle Busch finished 3rd. Not sure. Not seeing anything on that. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, hopefully, yeah. If it sounds like Larson's the winner, what channel did you get that from? Is that on Stearns or Jenna Fryer or something? I didn't see it on Pocraces yet, but maybe mine's just not. My internet might have gone out, and if that's the case, I don't know if I'm shouting into the void here. Okay. In the meantime, let me get another question here. How many? Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's too easy. How many laps are run in the Coca-Cola 600? 400. Okay. Let's try a different question. Here we go. What sport was originally slated to be contested on Lake Lloyd? What sport was originally slated to be contested on Lake Lloyd? There we go. It's not loading here. Hang on. Finished 3rd, team victory, 11 races left. All righty. Whoa, there it goes. Okay, rowing, water skiing, powerboat racing, fishing, bass fishing, Jaws the game, jet ski racing. Well, jet skis are certainly... Okay, well, I'm going to stay out of that one, too. What sport was originally slated to be contested on Lake Lloyd? The answer is boat racing. Boat racing is the correct answer. Boat racing, indeed. I guess Glenn 7000. I think you were the first one on that. Powerboat racing. Well, RD Fox 76. Yeah, you get close enough. I'll count. Survey says on that one, too. J-ski racing. All right, here we go. What track, next question, what track turned 50 the same year as NASCAR? What track turned 50 the same year as NASCAR? There's kind of a 2-parter there to kind of chew over. There is fish in that lake, is there? I've never been, so I don't really think about it. Martinsville, Charlotte. Got a lot of guesses for Martinsville. Got one for Darlington. Michael Jensen, thank you. Inspection complete. 24 and 48, one lug loose. 77 and 2 loose. No other issues reported. Okay, well, so it sounds like, yeah, Kyle Larson, your winner. So go me in the fantasy league. And last place finisher looks like it's going to be Kurt Busch. And that'll be your article for later tonight. So that'll be finished a little later this evening. What track turned 50 the same year as NASCAR? Thank you so much for those of you still tuning in. I know it's, oh gosh, it's midnight on the East Coast. So yeah, it's a long haul. Those of you, especially if you're really up early for the Indy 500, I'm not gonna keep you too much longer here on the show tonight. What track turned 50 the same year as NASCAR? The answer, oh no, really? Watkins Glen. Did anybody guess that? I thought those of you that had Martinsville got that right. Watkins Glen. The day they stopped the trains, was that okay? Was that 48? I guess it was. But I mean, there's like 3 different versions of Watkins Glen. There's like a later one. Yeah, Watkins Glen. Yeah, how about that? Oh, okay. What track turned 50 the same year as NASCAR? So it'll be 98, because that was the 50th anniversary of NASCAR. So it'll be 48. I mean, I guess racing, I mean, it's yeah, Watkins, that's a complicated, that was the thing that was really hard to explain in the JD book. And I should have added pictures to clear it up. But yeah, the track was like in 3 different locations, and it was, and then you had like multiple different configurations too. It's a hard history to track down, at least a hard one to express in just words alone. I think that was probably one of the hardest ones to write in terms of conceptually, at least in the book. I mean, there were ones that were hard for other reasons, but yeah. Yeah, big swing and a miss. Yeah, same here, man. I'll tell you what. Okay. I don't think anybody got that. Did anybody? Yeah. 0 guess. There you go. Yeah, Martinsville debuted in 49, so that's true. It opened in 48. It could just be wrong. It's been wrong before. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Now, this is an interesting follow-up. What 50s year was a NASCAR Winston Cup event first run at Watkins Glen? What 50s year was a NASCAR Winston Cup event first run at Watkins Glen? So now you know that when the track was open, it wasn't running Winston Cup right away, which you probably could guess, I would assume, but it's asking for a year. What 50s year was a NASCAR Winston Cup event first run at Watkins Glen? Which is good. We're getting some road course questions for next week. Yeah. Back to the Future, 2958. 19. Well, it is a 50s year. I mean, you could do that. Maybe they haven't run Watkins Glen. Maybe it doesn't even exist yet. They're going to run it in 30 years. What 50s year was a NASCAR Winston Cup event first run at Watkins Glen? The answer is 1957. 57 is the correct answer. Gigawatt. 57. Doritos and Mountain Dew. Racer 10X2000. Dana Mon. I think you were the first one, so good on you, Dane. 1950. Close. Very close. I really appreciate you guys just put up with my nonsense here on the show here on a late night here, but I'm not sure if I'd watch my show, but there you go. But that's a whole other thing. Let me see here. Next question. Okay, no, not that. Let's see. What length must a track be less than to be considered a short track? What length must a track be less than to be considered a short track? That's why nobody remembers when it opened. There you go. midnight where you live. Man, oh man. Yeah, late show. We'll wrap up here pretty soon. Those of you there, those of you on the East Coast, I guess if you're like one of our some of our foreign viewers, maybe you're having breakfast with this show. I don't know. Maybe that would be the difference. But yeah. Do we have any foreign viewers tonight? Anybody out in England or something like that? Or maybe it's like what, 7 or 8 in the morning at this point? Well, no, it's not 9:30. I guess it'd be like 4 or 5 in the morning at this point. But yeah. What length must a track be less than to be considered a short track? And we got several guesses for 1 mile, and that is indeed the correct answer. Of course, 1 mile. 1 mile is the correct answer. All right. Okay. Next question. What state hosted the most NASCAR Winston Cup events run on short tracks in 1998? I'll read it again here. What state hosted the most NASCAR Winston Cup events run on short tracks in 1998? What state, we're looking for a state here, hosted the most NASCAR Winston Cup events run on short tracks in 1998? I guess it's for Virginia and North Carolina and Canada. Okay. Big kudos to, I know I've been adjusting it a couple times here, but I want to make sure I show it off very nicely. Big kudos to NASCAR Man History there for the Gordon Smiley shirt. I definitely wanted to order one of these when I saw the design there and saved it for the Indy 500 here today. Again, I may be a big NASCAR guy, but I mean, the IndyCar, especially the Indy 500, I think those drivers are just gladiators. They're just the bravest of the brave to do what they do at the track there. And so many incredible stories from there. And I definitely, when I did the narration for the Gordon Smiley video, I definitely wanted to kind of maybe say, wow, I mean, this is a lot I didn't know about the guy and how critical he was to the way drivers promote themselves these days. And so I thought it would be pretty cool to pick this up. I definitely recommend it. It's a pretty comfortable shirt too. So check out NASCAR Man History's channel and you'll get the link to that too. He did a good job on that. What state hosted the most NASCAR Winston Cup events run on short tracks in 1998? And the answer, and most of you got it, is indeed Virginia is the correct answer. Virginia. Jesse Krill, I think you were the first one under the button on that one. Jesse Krill Incorporated. Okay, we'll do a couple more questions and we'll wrap up here for tonight. Let's see. No, that was too easy. No. Hang on. Here we go. This is a really good question. How many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era? Now, again, we're talking the late 90s here. So maybe like 98, 99. Think about that time period. How many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era is the next question. How many? We're looking for a number here. How many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era? All right, we got 4, we got 3, we got 5, we got 6, we got Rockingham, Ontario, Riverside, Fontana, and Sonoma. That sounds good. But again, in the modern era, are those the only ones? How many California cities have hosted Winston Cup races in the modern era? And the answer is 4. You got it. You got it indeed. Too good on that one. 4 is indeed the correct answer. Doritos and Mountain Dew. I think you were the first one. You got just ahead of Glenn 7000 on that one. But yeah, kudos to Hagen Bentley and Jack Allers for naming them. So yeah, right on. Okay, we'll do one more question for tonight. It's a late night here. We're pushing 2 hours here. One more question for tonight. Thank you again for so much for you guys tuning in. We'll wrap up here after this one. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? Yeah, now the question was for the West Series. See, Jack Allers, you were ahead of the curve here. Yeah. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? You can just guess. There's nothing, no such thing as a bad guess. I honestly don't know the answer to this. I really don't. So yeah, Winston West Series. Winston West races are interesting. I love the companion events. You know, Sears Point was like this for years, where you would have a few weird people that would try to qualify for the races. And a lot of times they did. Sometimes we sent some big teams home. It was always interesting. So, yeah. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? All right, we got the Las Vegas 150, the Samstown 300, the Winston West 200, the Mafia 100, Las Vegas 200, Samstown 150, Coca-Cola 500, Winston West Las Vegas 200. It could be many, heck, even the Mafia one. Who knows? What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? Yeah, it is 9:30 on the West Coast. Oh my goodness. What was the 1998 Winston West Series race in Las Vegas called? Okay, did not see this coming. The Ants Clash. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your starting lineup for the Cactus Clash in Las Vegas. Would not have guessed that at all. The Cactus Clash. That's a great name. My goodness. In 1998. The stripper pole. There you go. Well, yeah, there's a lot you could go with there. Cactus Clash would be an interesting one. I mean, you may as well. It sounds like a Wacky Races thing or a Speed Racer episode. It's like, yes. Speed. Don't win the Cactus Clash. Or, gosh, I can't come up with anything better to say than that. I don't know. It's been a long day. Anyway, it's been a long day for you guys too. And thank you for sitting it out with me tonight on the live stream. That will do it for tonight. Our next show is going to be after or perhaps during or at some point during this next weekend for Sears Point. May actually do a show on Friday after the premiere of episode 2 of Rise of the Field Fillers. Maybe do a short show on Friday night. That'll probably be our next show and kind of do a preview again of the Sears Point weekend in terms of covering the action from the weekend for both Xfinity Series in Mid-Ohio and the Cup Series at Sears Point. Probably end up doing the show on Monday evening, I would think. I think if we do a late show on Sunday, we'll probably get back at not too late of an hour on Sunday, but it might still push kind of longer. So I'm not sure if we'll be fresh enough for that on that day. But yeah, we'll probably end up doing the show on the Monday after that for that. If there's any changes on that, I'll certainly keep you posted there, especially on the social media at Last Car on Brock. And that will kick off our couple of weeks here with the Magnet here and running both our trackside coverage at the Sears Point, the Sonoma Raceway, technically, and the All-Star Race in Texas next week. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up here next couple of weeks. Stay tuned to the Twitter feed at Last Car on Brock. And, of course, the website is lastcar.info. And for more bonus content, check out patreon.com/lastcaronbrock, which includes advance access to both parts of the Carl Long episode that comes out this Thursday and Friday. If you are in the Patreon, it will be Wednesday and Thursday. So look forward to that if you're already in there for the $5 and up levels. And for $1 and up levels, you'll be riding along with us on the Magnet there. So a lot of exciting things coming up here. A lot to talk about from this weekend. Thank you so much for having me be a part of your Memorial Day weekend. Certainly the reason for the season, the commemoration of those we have lost in the line of duty. My utmost gratefulness and thanks to those who have served and those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for moments like this that we were able to just enjoy on a midnight on the internet. It's good to be able to do that without the concerns that much of the world unfortunately does not share in, at least at the moment. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and I will see you next week. Stay tuned for more Last Place content. It's about to get real busy here at Last Car headquarters.